People think disappearing is cruel, immature, cold. They assume it means someone didn't care enough to explain, didn't respect you enough to stay. But psychology tells a different story, a quieter one. Because most people who disappear without saying goodbye aren't heartless, they're exhausted. And leaving silently is the only way they know how to survive. Let's talk about them. Not the version you imagine, but the version they never show. It usually doesn't start with distance, it starts with closeness. They show up fully at first. They listen deeply. They remember the small details. They give more than they should. You feel seen around them, understood, safe. And that's the problem. Because people who disappear tend to feel everything too deeply. Your moods, your expectations, your disappointments. They absorb it all. Not because you're demanding, but because they don't know how not to. So, they slowly begin to carry emotional weight that isn't theirs. And they don't tell you. They're not good at asking for space, not good at explaining discomfort. Not because they don't care, but because they don't want to hurt you. They tell themselves, I'll handle it. It's not a big deal. I can push through. So they smile, they nod, they keep showing up until one day their body says no. Here's something people rarely understand. Disappearing is rarely impulsive. It's rehearsed in silence. They leave long before they're gone. First, they withdraw emotionally, then mentally, then finally physically. By the time they disappear, they've already said goodbye 100 times in their head. You just weren't there to hear it. People who disappear often grew up learning one dangerous lesson, that expressing needs leads to conflict or guilt or rejection. So, instead of saying, this hurts or I need space, they learned to disappear. Because disappearing feels safer than explaining. Explaining means questions, and questions mean pressure, and pressure feels like drowning. They don't vanish because they don't care. They vanish because caring costs them too much. Every message feels like responsibility. Every expectation feels like a weight. Even good relationships can feel overwhelming when you're already stretched thin inside. So when they leave without a word, it's not punishment, it's relief. But here's the part nobody talks about. They don't feel free afterward. They feel empty. They replay your conversations, your kindness, the moments they never explained. They wonder if they should have stayed longer, if they should have tried harder. They disappear from you, but they don't disappear from their guilt. People assume silence means closure. It doesn't. Silence is unfinished emotion, and people who disappear carry that unfinished weight everywhere they go. Another truth. People who disappear often feel invisible even when they're present. They sit next to you, they laugh with you, but inside they feel unseen. Not because you didn't try, but because they don't know how to be known. They don't speak their needs clearly. They don't set boundaries early. So over time, resentment builds quietly, and resentment, when unspoken, turns into escape. You might ask, why not just say goodbye? Because goodbye invites conversation, and conversation invites vulnerability. And vulnerability feels dangerous when you don't trust yourself to handle the response. What if you ask them to stay? What if you're hurt? What if they fold? So they leave quickly before emotions complicate the exit. People who disappear aren't running from you. They're running from the version of themselves that feels weak for needing space. They believe leaving quietly is strength. It isn't, but it feels like control when everything else feels overwhelming. If you've ever been left behind like this, here's what you need to hear. Their silence is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their limits. You didn't fail to matter. You mattered too much for someone who didn't know how to stay without losing themselves. And if you're the one who disappears, you're not broken, but you are avoiding something important. Because disappearing solves the moment, but it creates long-term loneliness. Every silent exit teaches your brain that connection is dangerous, that closeness leads to collapse. And over time, you stop letting people get close at all. Not because you don't want connection, but because you're tired of running. There's another layer here. People who disappear often believe they're replaceable, that their absence won't matter much. So they leave quietly to minimize impact. But what they don't realize is that silence hurts more than honesty. Not knowing hurts more than goodbye. Disappearing avoids discomfort, but it transfers pain from you to someone else, and eventually back to you. Real emotional strength isn't staying when you're drowning, and it isn't leaving without a word either. It's learning to say, I need space. I can't show up like I used to. I care, but I'm overwhelmed. Those sentences are terrifying, but they're honest, and honesty is how connection survives. Some people disappear once and never look back. Others disappear repeatedly, leaving a trail of unfinished relationships behind them. Both are signs of the same thing: unprocessed emotion, fear of confrontation, fear of being seen at their weakest. The psychology of disappearing isn't about cruelty. It's about self-protection taken too far. It's about choosing isolation over explanation, because isolation feels quieter, safer, but also lonelier. If someone disappeared from your life, let yourself grieve. Not just them, but the ending you never got. And if you're the one who disappears, let yourself reflect, not with shame, but with honesty. Because disappearing might feel like freedom, but learning how to stay or leave with clarity is how you finally stop running. Some people disappear because they don't know how to say goodbye. Others disappear because no one ever taught them how to stay. And understanding that is the first step towards healing for both sides. If this felt personal, you're not alone. And if you want to understand human behavior without pretending everything is positive or simple, then stay here, because this channel channel isn't about motivation. It's about the quiet truths we all live with, even the ones we don't know how to say out loud.